Have you ever held on to something long after it was already gone? Have you ever kept replaying old words, old memories, old promises, hoping that somehow the ending might change? Sometimes the hardest part of losing someone is not their absence. It is everything left unsaid. It is the weight of the words that never found a place to land. In a small town where autumn always seemed to arrive too early, there lived a man named Daniel. Every evening after work, he sat alone by the window of his apartment with a sheet of paper in front of him. The room was quiet except for the ticking of an old clock and the distant sound of cars passing in the street below. Under the soft yellow light of a lamp, Daniel wrote the same letter again and again. It was a letter to the woman he once believed he would spend his life with. Her name was Emily. They had shared years together. They had laughed in small kitchens, taken long walks under winter skies, and made promises that once felt stronger than anything. But somewhere along the way, life changed them. The love that had once felt easy became heavy. The closeness slowly turned into distance. And one day, she was gone. Daniel never truly recovered from the silence she left behind. So he wrote. Night after night, he filled the page with everything he had never said. The apologies, the memories, the questions, the hope. But no matter how many times he rewrote the letter, he never mailed it. He folded it carefully and kept it in the inside pocket of his coat, as if it were the last fragile piece of a life he could no longer touch. To anyone else, it was just paper and ink. But to Daniel, it was more than that. It was his unfinished goodbye. It was his last chance. In his heart, he told himself that maybe one day, when the timing felt right, he would send it. Maybe she would read it. Maybe she would understand. Maybe something broken could still be repaired. And so the letter stayed with him everywhere he went. He carried it to work. He carried it through grocery stores, across empty sidewalks, and into coffee shops where he sat alone, pretending not to notice happy couples at nearby tables. Sometimes he would take it out and read it quietly to himself. Other times he would just touch the pocket of his coat to make sure it was still there. The letter became his secret way of keeping the past alive. As long as he still had it, a part of him believed the story was not really over. As long as those words remained unread, there was still something left to hope for, but hope can become a prison when it ties your heart to something that no longer lives. One cold afternoon, Daniel stopped at a park on his way home. The trees were almost bare, and the wind moved through their branches with a lonely sound. He sat down on an old wooden bench and pulled the letter from his pocket. He unfolded it slowly, looking once more at the familiar lines, the worn creases, the words he knew by heart. For a long moment, he just stared at the page. Then a sudden gust of wind swept through the park. Before he could tighten his grip, the paper slipped from his fingers. At first, Daniel froze. Then panic hit him all at once. He jumped up and ran after the letter as it tumbled wildly across the path, lifted by the wind, thrown toward the trees, then into the street beyond the park. He chased it with his heart pounding, reaching for it again and again. But each time it slipped farther away. And then it was gone. Daniel stood there breathless, staring at the empty road as cars moved past and dry leaves spun around his feet. For the first time, he felt the full weight of what had happened. The one thing he had protected for so long, the one thing he had carried like a final piece of Emily, had vanished in seconds. He walked home slowly that night, His hands felt empty. His chest felt hollow. It seemed to him that he had not just lost a letter, he had lost his final connection to the life he used to have. In the quiet of his apartment, he sat by the window as he always did. The lamp still glowed. The clock still ticked. The city still moved outside, but the paper was gone. And with it, something else had disappeared too. For several days, Daniel felt strangely broken. He kept thinking about the letter. He replayed the moment again and again, wishing he had held on tighter, wishing he had been more careful, wishing he had one more chance. But slowly, something unexpected began to happen. In the middle of that loss, he noticed a silence inside himself that felt different. It was not the old silence of longing. It was not the ache of waiting. It was something calmer. It was the silence that comes when your hands are finally empty. As the days passed, Daniel began to understand something he had never been willing to face. The letter had never really been about Emily, not anymore. It had become the place where he stored his pain. It had become the excuse he used to stay emotionally tied to a door that had already closed. He told himself he was holding on to love. But what he was really holding on to was the hope that the past might return and save him from moving on. The lost letter had taken that illusion with it. For the first time in a long time, Daniel stopped living in the world of what could have been. He started noticing the life that was still in front of him. Morning light on his kitchen table, the warmth of coffee in his hands, the sound of laughter from people passing on the street, the simple truth that his life had not ended when that relationship did. One evening, he sat by the same window with a blank sheet of paper in front of him. But this time, he did not write to Emily. He wrote a few quiet words to himself. Then he folded the page, placed it in a drawer, and smiled gently. He did not need to send anything. He did not need to chase what the wind had already taken, because that was the moment Daniel finally understood. Not every letter is meant to be delivered. Some are only meant to help us say goodbye, inside our own hearts. And maybe life works that way for us too. Sometimes what slips from our hands feels like one more cruel loss. But in truth, it may be the very thing that frees us, because some things leave us not to punish us, but to make room for peace. And sometimes the moment we lose what we thought we needed most is the very moment we begin to find ourselves again. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who may need it today. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that bring hope, healing, and strength.